Sam Porter had been working on spaceships long enough to know that the universe had a twisted sense of humor about timing, but he'd never expected it to express that humor through faulty ventilation panels and accidental voyeurism. He was elbow-deep in the environmental systems of the independent freighter, Iron Phoenix, trying to trace a persistent air circulation problem, when the maintenance panel he was removing came away entirely instead of just loosening enough for access. The gap in the wall gave him an unobstructed view into the adjacent crew quarters, where Kira was in the process of removing her combat armor after their recent stopover at Kepler Station. Sam's first instinct was to immediately replace the panel and pretend he'd never seen anything, but what stopped him wasn't inappropriate curiosity, it was concern. Kira, the ship's hired muscle whose reputation for lethal efficiency kept pirates and troublemakers at a respectful distance, was covered in injuries that she'd clearly been hiding from the rest of the crew. Her elegant form, marked by the distinctive pointed ears that identified her as Zephyrian, bore scars and fresh wounds that painted a picture of someone who'd been through significantly more than the routine security consultation she described to Captain Morrison. Sam found himself transfixed not by any improper interest in her undressed state, but by the careful, practiced way she was treating wounds that looked both serious and deliberately concealed. The fearsome mercenary whose very presence had discouraged 3 different pirate crews from approaching their ship was methodically cleaning injuries with the resigned efficiency of someone accustomed to patching herself up alone. "How long have you been watching?" Kira's voice cut through his shocked stillness, calm and curious rather than carrying the threat he would have expected from someone with her reputation. Sam jerked back from the gap in the wall, his face burning with embarrassment as he fumbled to replace the ventilation panel. "I wasn't watching. I was working on the air circulation system and the panel came loose and I accidentally saw." He realized he was babbling and forced himself to stop talking. "Sam," Kira said, her voice still carrying that strange note of calm curiosity, "I asked you a question." "About 30 seconds, Sam admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was trying to figure out why the airflow was restricted in this section, and when I removed the panel it gave me a view I wasn't supposed to have." "I'm sorry, Kira. I wasn't trying to invade your privacy." There was a long pause during which Sam expected the sound of footsteps approaching his side of the wall, followed by whatever creative and probably painful method Kira would choose to express her displeasure with his accidental voyeurism. Instead, he heard something that sounded almost like a sigh of relief. "Sam, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly," Kira said through the wall that separated them. "What exactly did you see?" "I saw someone who's been hurt worse than she's been letting on," Sam replied, choosing honesty over self-preservation. "I saw injuries that look like they need proper medical attention, and I saw someone who's been taking care of them alone because she doesn't want anyone to know how badly she's been hurt." Another long pause, during which Sam could hear the quiet sounds of someone moving around, presumably getting dressed. "That's surprisingly perceptive for a mechanic," Kira said finally, and Sam thought he detected something that might have been amusement in her voice. "I work with damaged systems all day," Sam said, still speaking to the wall between them rather than trying to look through the gap. "After a while, you learn to recognize when something's been hurt but is still trying to function normally." The door to Kira's quarters opened, and Sam heard footsteps in the corridor. A moment later, she appeared at the entrance to the maintenance access where he was working, now dressed in the casual shipboard clothes that somehow made her seem more approachable than her usual armor or the fearsome reputation that preceded her. "Show me what you saw," Kira said simply. Sam looked at her in confusion. "What?" "The gap in the wall that gave you a view into my quarters," Kira clarified. "I want to see what kind of vantage point you had." Sam reluctantly gestured toward the loosened panel, and Kira crouched beside him to peer through the opening into her own quarters. Her proximity in the narrow maintenance space made Sam acutely aware of her presence, not just her physical form, but the controlled strength and watchful alertness that characterized everything about her. Clear sight line to the entire room, Kira observed with professional detachment. Good angle for observing activities without being detected. If someone wanted to spy on crew quarters, this would be an ideal location. "I wasn't spying," Sam said quickly. I was trying to fix the air circulation problem. The panel wasn't supposed to come completely loose. I believe you, Kira said, turning to study his face with an intensity that made Sam uncomfortably aware of how easily she could read people when she chose to focus on them. But Sam, I need to know, are you going to tell Captain Morrison or the rest of the crew about what you saw? About the injuries? Sam asked. No, of course not. That's your private business. Even though some of those injuries suggest I haven't been entirely honest about the nature of my recent assignment. Sam considered this carefully before answering. Kira, I've been working on ships for 15 years. I've learned that people have their reasons for keeping certain information private, and unless it's going to endanger the crew, those reasons are usually worth respecting. Kira's expression shifted to something that might have been surprise mixed with relief. You're not curious about where I got those injuries? About what really happened during my routine security consultation? I'm curious, Sam admitted. But I'm more concerned about the fact that you're trying to treat serious wounds without proper medical supplies or assistance. Some of those injuries look like they could get infected if they're not handled properly. The medical bay is shared space, Kira pointed out. Too many questions if I'm in there treating combat injuries that I supposedly didn't receive during a routine assignment. Then maybe, Sam said, surprising himself with his boldness, you should let someone help you who already knows about the injuries and doesn't need explanations about how you got them. Kira stared at him for a long moment, and Sam had the unsettling feeling that she was evaluating him according to criteria that had nothing to do with his mechanical expertise. You're offering to help treat combat injuries for someone you've known for 3 months, she asked. Someone whose reputation suggests that getting too close might be hazardous to your health. I'm offering to help someone who's in pain and trying to deal with it alone, Sam said. And for the record, your reputation might scare pirates and troublemakers, but I've noticed that you've never been anything but professional and considerate with the crew. Professional and considerate, Kira repeated, as if testing the words. Not exactly the adjectives most people would use to describe me. Most people only see the reputation, Sam said. They don't notice that you always volunteer for the most dangerous parts of any job, that you position yourself between the crew and potential threats, or that you've never let anyone get hurt while you're responsible for ship security. Kira's ears, visible now without her combat helmet, twitched in what Sam was beginning to recognize as a sign of surprise or emotional processing. Sam, she said quietly, are you sure you want to get involved in whatever complications might come from helping me? Because once you know the real story behind these injuries, you'll be carrying information that some very dangerous people would prefer to keep secret. Sam looked at this formidable woman who was offering him the chance to walk away from complications that could endanger his comfortable anonymity aboard the Iron Phoenix, and he realized that the question wasn't whether he wanted to get involved, it was whether he could live with himself if he didn't. Kira, he said, I'd rather carry dangerous secrets with someone I trust than pretend I didn't see someone who needs help. The medical bay of the Iron Phoenix at 3 in the morning was exactly the kind of quiet, private space that Sam had hoped it would be. Kira had waited until the rest of the crew was asleep before making her way down from her quarters, moving with the silent efficiency that made her such an effective mercenary but also, Sam was discovering, such a lonely person. I haven't done this before, Sam admitted as Kira settled onto the examination table and began removing the improvised bandages she'd been using to conceal her injuries. I mean, I've done basic first aid, but treating combat wounds is a little outside my area of expertise. You fix damaged systems, Kira pointed out, wincing as she peeled away a bandage that had adhered to a particularly nasty gash along her ribs. Damaged people aren't that different from damaged machinery. You assess the problem, determine what needs repair, and apply the appropriate solution. Damaged people can feel pain and have opinions about the repair process, Sam said, gathering medical supplies with the same methodical approach he used for organizing tools. Damaged machinery just sits there and lets you work on it. In my experience, damaged people learn to sit quietly and let competent hands work on them too, Kira said, and something in her tone suggested she was speaking from significant personal experience. As Sam began cleaning the worst of her injuries, he found himself marveling at the stories written in scars across Kira's skin. Each mark seemed deliberate, strategic, injuries taken in specific places to protect something or someone else. This one's recent, Sam observed, treating a deep cut on her shoulder that showed signs of careful but amateur field dressing. Looks like it was made by something with a serrated edge. Vibroblade, Kira confirmed. Wielded by someone who thought kidnapping colonist children was a profitable business model. And this pattern here? Sam asked, indicating a series of smaller injuries across her left arm that formed an almost geometric design. Energy weapon set to wide dispersal, Kira said matter-of-factly. I used my arm to shield a research station's communication array while they called for help. The alternative was letting the pirates disable their distress beacon and take their time with the staff. Sam paused in his work, beginning to understand that what he was treating wasn't the aftermath of reckless mercenary violence but evidence of someone who consistently chose to absorb damage rather than let it reach others. Kira, Sam said carefully, your routine security consultation was actually a rescue operation, wasn't it? 17 colonist children and their teacher, Kira confirmed. Kidnapped by slavers who thought they could ransom them back to the colonial authority. The official security response was going to take 6 days to organize. The children didn't have 6 days. So you went in alone? I went in quietly, Kira corrected. Loud approaches get hostages killed. Quiet approaches sometimes result in the kind of injuries you're currently treating, but they also result in 17 children going home to their families. Sam continued his work in thoughtful silence, processing this new understanding of what Kira's reputation actually represented. The fearsome mercenary whose presence intimidated pirates and criminal elements wasn't just skilled at violence, she was someone who used that skill specifically to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Why do you hide it? Sam asked as he applied a fresh bandage to the vibroblade wound. The fact that you're essentially a one-person rescue service? Most people would consider that heroic. Heroes get expectations placed on them, Kira said simply. They get asked to save everyone, to fix every injustice, to risk their lives for causes that may or may not be worth dying for. Mercenaries get hired for specific jobs, complete those jobs according to the terms of their contracts, and maintain the professional distance necessary to make rational decisions about acceptable risks. But you do take on jobs that other mercenaries wouldn't consider, Sam pointed out. Jobs where the pay probably doesn't match the danger involved. Sometimes, Kira admitted. When the alternative is letting something terrible happen to people who don't deserve it. Sam finished treating the visible injuries and began packing away the medical supplies, noting how much more relaxed Kira seemed without the constant underlying tension of hidden pain. Thank you, she said quietly. For the medical attention, and for not asking questions about things that aren't your concern. Actually, Sam said, I do have one question, but it's not about your work. What? When was the last time someone helped you with something like this? When was the last time you didn't have to patch yourself up alone? Kira was quiet for a long moment, and Sam realized he might have touched on something more personal than her professional activities. A long time, she said finally. Long enough that I'd forgotten how much easier it is when someone else can reach the injuries on your back. And long enough that you'd forgotten how it feels to have someone know about the injuries without judging you for having them. That too, Kira agreed, her ears twitching with what Sam was learning to recognize as emotional processing. Sam, can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you being so kind to me? Most people aboard this ship are polite but keep their distance. Professional courtesy to someone whose job involves potential violence. But you're treating me like a person who deserves care rather than just professional respect. Sam considered the question while sealing the medical supplies away in their proper storage locations. Because I've spent the last 3 months watching you, and what I've seen is someone who takes care of everyone else while carefully managing to never let anyone take care of her. That kind of isolation isn't sustainable, even for someone as competent as you are. And you've appointed yourself as the person who's going to take care of me? I volunteered to be the person who notices when you need help and offers it without making it a big dramatic gesture, Sam corrected. Whether you accept the help is entirely up to you. Kira slid down from the examination table, testing her range of motion with the properly treated injuries. It feels strange, she said after a moment. What does? Having someone aboard this ship who knows what I actually do for a living, and who doesn't seem to think less of me for it. Why would I think less of you for risking your life to protect people? Because protection work is messy, Kira said. It involves making decisions about acceptable casualties, using violence to prevent greater violence, and sometimes failing to save everyone who deserves to be saved. Most people prefer their heroes to be cleaner than that. Most people don't understand that real protection work means getting dirty so that other people can stay clean, Sam replied. But some of us appreciate the people who are willing to do necessary work that isn't pretty or simple. As they prepared to leave the medical bay, Kira paused at the door and turned back to face him. Sam, if you're going to know about my real work, there's something else you should understand. What's that? The kind of jobs I take on tend to create enemies. People who profit from the suffering of others don't appreciate having their operations disrupted. If they ever figure out that someone aboard this ship knows about my activities, they'll have to deal with the fact that someone who knows about your activities also knows how to make their ship's life support systems malfunction in creative and unpleasant ways, Sam said calmly. Kira stared at him for a moment, then laughed, the first genuine expression of amusement he'd heard from her since joining the crew. Are you threatening to assassinate slavers and pirates using environmental engineering? I'm saying that people who threaten crew members I care about might discover that their atmospheric recycling systems have developed mysterious problems that make their ships less than pleasant to inhabit, Sam said with a smile. Completely accidental mechanical failures, of course. Of course, Kira agreed, her ears twitching with what was definitely amusement now. Sam, I think this partnership is going to be more interesting than either of us anticipated. 3 weeks into their clandestine medical partnership, Sam had become an expert at reading the subtle signs that indicated Kira had taken on another, routine security consultation, that was anything but routine. The way she moved with slightly more caution, the careful positioning that favored recently treated injuries, and a satisfied expression that suggested she'd successfully completed something that mattered to her personally rather than professionally. Let me guess, Sam said as they made their way to the medical bay for another late-night treatment session. This time it was pirates threatening a mining colony, and you convinced them that their business model would be more profitable if they focused on asteroid salvage instead of terrorizing families. Close, Kira said, settling onto the examination table with the practiced ease of someone who had grown comfortable with accepting help. This time it was corporate security forces trying to forcibly relocate indigenous populations from a planet that turned out to have valuable mineral deposits. Sam paused in his preparation of medical supplies. Corporate security forces have military-grade equipment and legal authority. That's significantly more dangerous than freelance pirates. Which is why the Indigenous Council couldn't afford to hire anyone else, Kira pointed out, beginning to remove the tactical gear that concealed her latest collection of injuries. Official mercenary companies won't take contracts against corporate interests. Too much risk of losing other business relationships. But you took the job anyway. I took the job because someone needed to document the illegal forced relocation attempts and provide evidence for the legal challenges, Kira said, wincing as she revealed a particularly colorful bruise across her ribs. The fact that the documentation process required neutralizing several armed security teams was an unfortunate but necessary complication. Sam began treating her injuries with the practiced efficiency they'd both developed over their weeks of collaboration, but his attention was divided between the medical work and growing concern about the escalating risks Kira was accepting. These corporate security jobs are more dangerous than the rescue operations, Sam observed, cleaning a cut that showed signs of being made by military-grade combat gear. More resources, better equipment, legal backing. What happens when you run into something you can't handle alone? I don't take jobs I can't complete successfully, Kira said, but her tone suggested she'd been thinking about the same question. Risk assessment is a critical part of professional mercenary work. Professional mercenaries also work in teams for jobs this dangerous, Sam pointed out. They have backup, extraction plans, support networks. You're operating as a one-person army against increasingly organized opposition. Team operations require trust, coordination, and shared commitment to the mission parameters, Kira said. In my experience, most people aren't willing to risk their lives for strangers, especially when the legal and financial rewards are minimal. What about people who aren't motivated primarily by legal and financial rewards? Kira looked at him with curiosity. What do you mean? I mean, Sam said, applying a fresh bandage with careful precision, what about people who might be motivated by the same things that drive you to take these jobs? People who think that protecting innocents from predatory violence is worth some personal risk. Sam, are you suggesting that you want to participate in illegal intervention operations against corporate and criminal organizations? I'm suggesting that watching you come back injured from increasingly dangerous solo missions is starting to affect my sleep schedule, Sam said. And I'm wondering whether my technical skills might be useful in making those missions less likely to result in serious injury to people I care about. Kira was quiet for a long moment, processing this offer with the same careful analysis she applied to all significant decisions. Sam, what I do isn't glamorous or morally simple. It involves infiltration, sabotage, and violence against people who are technically operating within legal boundaries even when their actions are ethically reprehensible. It also involves protecting people who can't protect themselves from organizations that exploit legal loopholes to cause suffering, Sam replied. I may not be a combat specialist, but I understand the difference between legal and right. And you understand that participating in this kind of work would change your relationship with authority, with law enforcement, with the comfortable moral ambiguity of civilian life? Kira, Sam said, meeting her eyes directly, I've spent the last month treating injuries you received while saving children from slavery and protecting indigenous populations from forced displacement. My relationship with moral ambiguity changed the moment I realized what you actually do with your skills. Their conversation was interrupted by the ship's emergency alert system, followed by Captain Morrison's voice over the intercom announcing that they were being approached by 3 vessels that weren't responding to communication requests and appeared to be taking attack positions. Pirates, Kira said immediately, her entire demeanor shifting to professional alertness as she began pulling on her tactical gear despite her partially treated injuries. Probably the same crew that's been hitting freight haulers in this system for the past month. Can you fight effectively with these injuries? Sam asked, noting the way she was favoring her left side. I can fight effectively enough, Kira said, checking her weapon systems with practiced efficiency. But Sam, this might be an opportunity for you to discover whether you actually want to participate in dangerous intervention work or if you just like the idea in theory. What do you mean? I mean, Kira said, heading toward the door of the medical bay, this ship has excellent defensive capabilities that no one has bothered to activate because we've never had a mechanic who understood how to integrate tactical systems with environmental controls. If you want to help protect people, now would be an excellent time to figure out how to turn this freight hauler into something that can survive a pirate attack. Sam felt his pulse quicken with a mixture of fear and excitement as he followed Kira toward the bridge. Are you asking me to weaponize our life support systems? I'm asking you to use your technical expertise to give us advantages that the pirates won't be expecting, Kira said. They're planning to board a defenseless freight hauler operated by civilians. They're not prepared to deal with a ship that can fight back using systems they've never encountered. As they reached the bridge, where Captain Morrison was trying to negotiate with the attacking vessels while the rest of the crew prepared for what appeared to be an inevitable boarding action, Sam realized that this was the moment where he would discover whether his theoretical commitment to protecting innocents could translate into practical action when the stakes were real and immediate. Kira, he said quietly, what exactly did you have in mind? Selective atmospheric manipulation, targeted power fluctuations, and creative use of artificial gravity to make boarding parties extremely uncomfortable while making it impossible for them to predict or counter our defensive measures, Kira said with the confidence of someone who had already analyzed the tactical situation and formulated a comprehensive response plan. And you think we can coordinate that kind of integrated defense without extensive planning or practice? I think, Kira said, her ears twitching with what Sam now recognized as anticipation rather than anxiety, that we're about to find out whether our partnership works as well in combat situations as it does in medical situations." Sam looked through the bridge viewport at the 3 pirate vessels closing on their position, then at Kira, whose presence seemed to fill the bridge with calm confidence despite her recent injuries. "All right," Sam said, moving toward the engineering controls with determined purpose. "Let's show them what happens when they try to board a ship operated by people who take their crew safety seriously." The coordinated defense of the Iron Phoenix became the stuff of spacer legends, though the official reports carefully omitted the more creative aspects of how a simple freight hauler had managed to disable 3 pirate vessels without firing a single conventional weapon. Sam's integration of environmental controls with tactical systems had created defensive capabilities that the attacking pirates were completely unprepared to counter, while Kira's strategic expertise had turned their own boarding protocols against them. Atmospheric pressure differential successful in Airlock 7, Sam reported with professional calm that belied the adrenaline coursing through his system. "The boarding party is experiencing difficulty maintaining consciousness in the reduced oxygen environment. Artificial gravity manipulation complete in Cargo Bay 2, Kira added, coordinating their defensive measures with the fluid expertise of someone who had conducted similar operations many times before. "The second boarding team is discovering that fighting in variable gravitational fields requires significantly more skill than they possess." Captain Morrison, who had initially been skeptical of unconventional defensive measures, watched with growing amazement as his cargo hauler systematically neutralized a pirate force that should have overwhelmed them easily. "How are you doing this?" Morrison asked, studying tactical displays that showed the attacking vessels in various states of distress despite the Iron Phoenix never having deployed traditional weapons systems. "Selective system failures designed to make their ships uncomfortable but not dangerous," Sam explained, monitoring power distribution readouts that showed exactly how much stress the pirate vessel's life support systems could handle before reaching critical failure points. "Environmental manipulation that encourages them to reconsider their career choices without actually putting anyone in mortal danger. And tactical psychology that exploits the difference between pirates who prey on defenseless targets and fighters who can adapt to unexpected challenges," Kira added, noting with satisfaction that all 3 attacking vessels were now requesting permission to withdraw from the engagement. The aftermath of their successful defense revealed capabilities that neither Sam nor Kira had fully anticipated. Their coordination during the crisis had been seamless, combining technical innovation with strategic thinking to create solutions that neither could have developed independently. "We make a good team," Kira observed later, as they conducted post-engagement medical treatment in the privacy of her quarters rather than the shared medical bay. "Your technical creativity complements my tactical experience in ways that multiply the effectiveness of both skill sets. And your strategic thinking helps me understand how to apply technical solutions to complex problems that don't have obvious engineering answers," Sam replied, treating the minor injuries she'd sustained during the engagement with the practiced competence their partnership had developed. "I never imagined that environmental systems could be used as non-lethal weapons." "Everything is a weapon if you understand its application properly," Kira said, then added with obvious affection, "but not everyone has the imagination to weaponize life support systems in real time during combat situations." Their success in defending the Iron Phoenix had attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Within days of their arrival at the next port, they were approached by representatives from several organizations that specialized in protecting vulnerable populations from predatory violence. "The Outer Rim Protection Alliance," explained Commander Sarah Chen, whose credentials identified her as the coordinator for volunteer security services in systems where official law enforcement was inadequate or corrupt. "We've heard about your innovative approach to defensive operations, and we'd like to discuss the possibility of collaborative missions." "Collaborative missions?" Sam asked, still adjusting to the idea that their improvised defense had created professional opportunities he'd never considered. "Rescue operations, protection services, humanitarian interventions in situations where conventional military or law enforcement responses are either unavailable or inappropriate," Chen explained. "Your combination of technical innovation and strategic expertise could be invaluable for missions that require creative solutions to complex problems." Kira looked at Sam with an expression that suggested she was evaluating his readiness for the kind of work she'd been doing alone for years. Sam, This would mean leaving the Iron Phoenix and Captain Morrison's crew. It would mean accepting the risks and moral complications that come with intervention work on a professional basis. It would also mean, Sam said, understanding the full implications of the offer, working together to protect people who need protection, using our skills in service of something more meaningful than routine freight hauling. And it would mean, Kira added quietly, that you'd be committing to a life where the work is dangerous, the legal status is often ambiguous, and the rewards are primarily personal satisfaction rather than financial security. Sam looked around the comfortable familiarity of the Iron Phoenix, then at Kira, whose presence had transformed his understanding of what constituted meaningful work and worthwhile risks. "Will you be there to patch me up when I get injured doing stupid but necessary things?" he asked. "Will you be there to turn hostile ships' environmental systems against them when I need tactical advantages?" Kira replied. "Then I think," Sam said, "we should accept Commander Chen's offer and find out what we can accomplish when we stop pretending that comfortable safety is more important than protecting people who need protection." 6 months later, Sam and Kira had established themselves as the most effective two-person intervention team operating in the Outer Rim territories. Their reputation for creative problem-solving and successful mission completion had made them the preferred choice for rescue operations and protection services that required both technical innovation and strategic expertise. Mission briefing, Kira announced, reviewing the details of their latest assignment while Sam made modifications to their ship systems that would provide the specialized capabilities their work required. Hostage situation on a mining platform, corporate security forces, approximately 40 civilians including children. Standard corporate intimidation tactics or actual violence? Sam asked, configuring environmental controls that would allow them to neutralize hostile forces without endangering the hostages. Unknown, but the request came through emergency channels and included video evidence of security forces using excessive force against platform workers, Kira replied. Time-sensitive situation with high probability of escalation if intervention is delayed. Sam completed his system modifications and looked at Kira, noting the focused alertness that characterized her preparation for dangerous missions. "Are you ready for another creative interpretation of environmental engineering regulations? Are you ready for another opportunity to discover that technical systems can be more effective than conventional weapons when applied with sufficient imagination?" Kira replied. As their ship approached the mining platform, Sam reflected on how dramatically his life had changed since that accidental moment of voyeurism that had revealed Kira's hidden vulnerabilities. Their partnership had evolved from embarrassed medical assistance to professional collaboration that combined their complementary skills in service of protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. "Sam," Kira said as they prepared for insertion into the hostile situation, "do you ever regret getting involved in this kind of work? Do you miss the comfortable anonymity of routine mechanical maintenance?" "I miss the predictability," Sam admitted, "but I don't miss feeling like my skills weren't being used for anything that mattered." "And Kira?" "Yes. I definitely don't regret the moment that faulty ventilation panel showed me who you really are behind the reputation and the professional facade." Kira's ears twitched with the affectionate amusement that had become one of Sam's favorite expressions. "Even though that moment led to you becoming a wanted man in several corporate security databases?" "Especially because it led to that," Sam said with a grin. "After all, what's the point of having technical expertise if you're not going to use it to make life difficult for people who profit from making other people suffer?" As they began their approach to the mining platform, Sam and Kira prepared to demonstrate once again that the most effective interventions often came from the most unexpected partnerships, and that sometimes the most important relationships began with accidental moments of vulnerability that revealed the hidden depths of strength and compassion that lay beneath professional facades.